Hello and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we're releasing another bonus episode. Recently, I was re-featured on the Evolve podcast with my good friend Steve Cutler, and we recorded a series of 2 short interviews where we took a deep dive into some simple tips and tricks to start a low-carb diet. And the other episode we did was all about mouth taping, one of my favorite practices to do at night to train the body to breathe properly. So these were really fun conversations, and as always, we like to cross-promote and make sure that we are sharing around their message as well. So we're putting these together for this episode today. Be sure, as always, to go over to Apple Podcasts and make sure that you're leaving them a rating and review. Go subscribe to his show. He's had some really great episodes recently. They invite really good guests and have really great conversations on a wide array of different things. I think you'll really enjoy the podcast, and please let them know that as well. And without further ado, here's my appearance on the Evolve podcast.
This is getting better and better.
Get some recipes.
Look at that.
Yes, sir. You haven't peaked yet.
I just can't wait.
That's a lesson that games are not played on paper.
No.
But they're played on the field.
I told you guys. I told you.
I told you.
Welcome to Evolve, the lifestyle brand that disrupts conventional thinking and challenges you to evolve your soul, evolve your body, evolve your mind, and evolve your tribe. And now, it's time to disrupt.
You have value, and you are not alone.
When I close my eyes, I can see a whole different world. Wow, That's what I want to do, man.
Welcome to Evolve Your Body, part of the Evolve Your series of shorts that gives you real-world stories and ideas to disrupt your current thinking and spark new evolution. Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by owner of Boundless Body and the host of Boundless Body Radio, my good friend Casey Ruff. Casey, thanks for joining us today on Evolve Your Body.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I mean, Casey, you've spent the last several years becoming a true expert in the low carb and keto lifestyle. I know with your podcast, you interview a lot of people on this low carb lifestyle, and you've really just mastered this, right? So you know everything there is to know about low carb and keto.
I definitely would not say that, but I've been heading in that direction, and you were a big part of that. I mean, I kind of stumbled into this world and felt like I was getting pigeonholed as, the person that was only doing like a low carbohydrate lifestyle, and people started giving me the name of Keto Casey.
Keto Casey.
That's right. And I came to you for advice and said, like, look, man, I don't want to get like pigeonholed into this world. And you helped encourage me to say, like, you know what, like maybe you should like just own it and really make this a part of, what you offer. And so, ever since then, I guess I wouldn't say I know anything about it really, but I've dedicated my life and career to learning more about it every single day. And, it's been a really interesting journey, and definitely learned a lot along the way, and hopefully help some people.
Well, I think what's cool is it doesn't matter how people want to pigeonhole you, because I think people are always trying to classify and put us into a certain box. And calling you Keto Casey, that's fine if people want to do that. But the reality is, through your studies, you've learned so many different things about so many different things, right? You've gotten so deep into so many different areas. You interviewed so many, like a wide variety of guests about a wide variety of topics. And it's amazing every time you and I talk, where you just blow me away, or I'll listen to one of the episodes of your podcast. I'll be blown away at the diversity of people that you have on there. So it's not that you only know about keto and low carb. You are an expert in it for sure, but you've learned about so much over this period of time. So who cares what people say about us, right? As long as we're on the right path for us, we're going to create the diversity in our life that we need to. But there are a lot of benefits with a low carb and a ketogenic lifestyle. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about before is that whether it's ketogenic or carnivore or whatever people choose to utilize, each one of these lifestyles or diets they're a tool in the tool belt, right? They're not necessarily something that someone's going to do for their entire life and you can never eat any type of carbohydrate again. It's a tool and it's a resource for someone, right? So talk a little bit about what got you into the ketogenic or the low carb lifestyle.
Yeah, sure. So the whole concept was introduced to me almost a decade ago by Bob Seebahar. He's a coach out of Colorado. The company that we used to work for, have worked with him temporarily, and he introduced the concept of using fat as a fuel source during endurance sport, which completely blew me away because at the time, it was unthinkable that you would not need a very high carbohydrate diet or a lot of carbohydrates while you were doing endurance sports. Most people understand, like if you go out for a run or a bike ride or anything that's, longer than an hour or so, if you're not fueling that workout with, a bar, a gel, some type of high carbohydrate drink of some kind, like you're going to run out of energy. And it was really a foreign concept to me that you could use the fat that we store inside the body as a fuel source. And once you teach the body how to do that, there's so much fuel available. We store hundreds of thousands of calories of stored body fat as fuel that most of us don't learn how to use that as a source. And as humans, we're really good at storing it and we're really good at burning it when we're in the right state. And so, again, that was about a decade ago that I started, consuming more fat in my diet, consuming less carbohydrate in my diet, and led me to where I am today. And I just think that for most people, what most people are trying to do is they want more energy. They are hungry all the time. They carry an excess amount of body fat. And if we can teach them to burn the fat that they have stored on their body, they can get rid of it, which is, again, what most people want. And we live in a world today that's really kind of unique. We've never experienced this as humans, where it's not that carbohydrates are bad necessarily. It's just that they're so available. You can get carbohydrates all day, every day, 365 days out of the year. That's a really new thing for a human. I mean, most of us have, as humans, we should have like a summer, we should have a winter. There should be fruits and maybe, honey or some carbohydrates available for part of the year and then maybe not. And that's why we store so much fat to begin with, is so we can burn that when the carbohydrates are not available. And then when we consume the carbohydrates, we store a lot of fat, which is great because there's going to be a period of time when we're not going to have those anymore. And again, we live in this world today where you can go to the store and buy an apple 365 days out of the year. You can go to the, Walmart and go through the aisles and buy boxes and bags and cans of all kinds of stuff. And who knows, how long, when was that made? How was it processed? All that kind of stuff. And then you can also drive to the corner soda store and buy a bucket of soda for $2 and have sugar cookies with it. It's just a different world that we've ever been exposed to.
It's amazing how prevalent. I like what you said, that it is so prevalent. Fat and protein is the hardest thing to find and get into our diet. And when I used to work with clients on a regular basis, I would say build your meal around your protein first. Find your protein first, because carbs are easy to find. If you can get your fats and your proteins first, then you're going to be just fine. Now, I love what you said too, though, that it's not that carbohydrates are bad, but what's happened is we become so focused on them. And when you eat carbohydrates in excess, your body wants more. It craves more over and over and over again. I was blown away. I think we had this conversation, we started having these conversations probably a decade ago, like you're talking about. And I remember at one point, there was a gentleman by the name of Marty who worked with us. And Marty was a triathlon coach and was just, here's this guy. He was a true badass. He was a former, general in the Navy. A submarine like captain.
He was a submarine captain. Yeah.
Submarine captain, yeah, like nuclear submarines, and he was an endurance athlete, a triathlete. And I remember one day we were all sitting around, we were talking about this concept. There was a guy that worked for our corporate office that he would always say, "Eat fat, get lean," and Marty had mentioned that he switched to eating a lot more fat and cutting carbohydrates out or cutting them down to nothing. And he had gone on this long distance. I can't remember if it was like a trail run or if he'd gone biking or what it was. And he said, guys, I'd never bonked. I never hit that point where I ran out of energy. And normally at mile number whatever, because he had done this event before, that's when I'm trying to slam the goos and take all the sugary stuff because I'm running out of energy. He says, I had consistent energy all the way through. In fact, when I got to that point where I normally lose energy, I actually hit a point where I boosted up in my energy. And so I started to think, wow, there's probably something to this. And then you and I would talk, and you got me introduced to Nina Teicholz's book, The Big Fat Surprise. I listened to that on Audible, and that changed my life. And I would say from that point forward, I went into a low carbohydrate lifestyle, and actually went ketogenic for about 2 years. Saw a lot of great benefits from it. And now I rotate between low carbohydrate to ketogenic. Ongoing. There are times where I'll have a higher carbohydrate cycle depending on how my training is with lifting weights, and it helps me to feel more full and I can train a little bit harder for a period of time. But for the most part, the low carbohydrate or the ketogenic works really, really well for me. So there's a lot of benefits to this. Weight management is one that we talked about. Talk about a few other benefits of eating less carbohydrates.
Yeah, so that's such a great point. And I love what you talked about earlier when you called it a tool. It's definitely something that can be used from time to time. It's not something you have to do all the time, but some of the most people come to a low carbohydrate diet for exactly what you mentioned. It is, weight management, fat loss, that kind of thing. If people have tried to cut their calories and they noticed that they feel terrible, they're hungry all the time, they feel cold, their energy sucks, they're really moody, and they gain weight the second they stop, they know that kind of paradigm of just cutting calories doesn't really work. And so most people come to low carbohydrate because they learn over time that cutting calories doesn't work. And if you cut the carbohydrates, your body will keep its insulin lower, which is a hormone that tells the body to be in a fat storage type mode. And once you're out of fat storage, you're into fat burning. You can burn off the fat you already have. But it is really surprising for a lot of people what they notice as a side benefit. Like most people come to a ketogenic diet for the weight loss or the fat loss, but they stay for things like mental clarity. Most people notice that their brain just kind of functions much better. You can think more clearly. They may stay because their joints feel better. I mean, an analogy I'll give to people is like, take a bowl of sugar and water, put your hand in it, kind of mix it around and feel like the stickiness. Now take your hand and put it into a bowl of flour and water and put it in there and kind of feel the gumminess of it. And then kind of put your hand in a bowl of water and oil, like a fat, and notice that it feels like really smooth and like well lubricated. And I don't think that's a terrible analogy for how people feel inside their bodies when they're consuming a high amount of sugar, a high amount of flour.
That's a great point.
Those kinds of things, those gum up the joints. That causes a lot of inflammation in the body. Gut issues is a really big thing. A lot of people with IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease, they're not taking frequent bowel movements. Like that kind of stuff is so ubiquitous. We just think of that as normal since so many people experience it. But there's such a difference between normal and average. Average is just how people feel. And everybody's eating this like standard American diet that has so much flour, so much sugar, so much vegetable oil, all this like crappy inflammatory food. They're not eating a natural, normal diet that would be but inherently like lower in carbohydrates anyway. And they notice their joints suck, their digestion isn't right, their mood isn't regulated well. So those kind of like side benefits. I mean, there's so many. We could talk about the skin. We could talk more about the brain. We could talk about the heart and heart rate and the parasympathetic nervous system. Like there's so many different other issues that people notice resolve once they get onto this diet. And a lot of people choose to do this for their entire life because they're not willing to give up how it feels.
It feels amazing to get rid of it. I think one of the things that is difficult for people, though, is they're so used to being addicted to the feeling that comes with having a lot of sugar in their diet. And whether it's that massive sugar soda, whether it's that extra cookie, Or what a lot of people don't understand because they're not looking deeper, they're not reading the nutrition facts. If you go out to a fast food place and you order, let's say, the burger and fries, the majority of the time, not only do you have this processed, refined, completely broken down flour that's in the bun that you're eating, but they tend to add sugar to just about everything else. The burger has sugar added to it as an addictive substance. And so it's amazing how much of these hidden sugars are out there, which also, I mean, sugar is a very fine molecule, can be hidden in a lot of different things, which increases your caloric intake. And so not only are you getting all of these extra hidden calories in a very, very easy way, but you're now putting a substance in there that is probably one of the most addictive substances on the planet. There's a reason our bodies love sugar. It's because historically we couldn't find it. It wasn't in abundance like it is nowadays. You know, our ancestors didn't walk around and say, well, pass me the table sugar. If they got sugar, it was maybe once a year. You know, we're talking 200-300 years ago. This stuff was not around like it is today. And it's very addictive. So I love how you're talking about all these benefits of the low carb and the ketogenic lifestyle. What I want our listeners to walk away with today are some very, very simple tools that they can start to implement. If they have not tried a low carb or a ketogenic lifestyle, it's a hard thing to jump into head first and to feel great doing. And so there are some simple tools. I'd love to hear what your recommendations are. How does somebody ease into this?
Sure. Yeah. So that's such a great point. I think the best way to think about a low carbohydrate diet is to start by not thinking so much about limiting the things you can't have, but really focus on increasing the things that you should consume more. And you mentioned fats and proteins. I think that's a great place to start. Just don't worry about the carbohydrates when you're getting started, but start by increasing the fats and proteins. Get more of that. One of the biggest benefits of a low carbohydrate diet is that it should be fully satiating, which is different than feeling like really full. Like if you and I were to go out and, you know, do a quote unquote healthy lunch and we have a big salad with, you know, kale, chicken breast, maybe like a low calorie dressing or something like that, like your stomach would certainly be full. But I think both of us realize like in 2-3 hours, we would be pretty hungry. Like you would definitely be craving food and want to have something that really hits the spot. You know, a few days ago, you and I went out to breakfast. We had avocado toast. They didn't spare the avocado at all. There was tons. We had 3 eggs. Like that's a lot of protein and a lot of fat in particular. When, just curious, like for you that day, when was the next time you felt hungry?
Oh, probably. Let's see. I think we normally go out at about 7:30 in the morning.
7:30. And
so by the time we finish eating that, to the next time that I think I actually wanted to eat something was maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I'm not hungry after something like that. And that's even getting the sourdough toast that they make right there in the bakery that we go to. You know, the fats and the proteins offset that, and it feels great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the biggest benefits is if you aren't hungry, you probably won't eat. And if you don't eat, you're burning fat. And so I really encourage people to start by focusing on the proteins and the fats to get really full and satiated versus just like filling your stomach with a bunch of bulk. After that, I mean, I think things like, you know, getting enough salt is a big thing. Most people are way under consuming salt. You talked about how sugar will always taste good. And that's true because sugar rewards you because you shouldn't find it all the time. It's like we talked about, like it shouldn't be available all the time. We've made it that way. But salt will really self-regulate for taste. And most people will relate to the fact that they can eat something that's like really salty and it tastes really good. And then like all of a sudden it tastes like, that's a little bit too salty. That's how the body will tell you when you've had enough salt. But most people are way under salt. And most people don't realize how much getting salt will help you not have so many sugar cravings. I like Dr. James Nicola Antonio's way of thinking about it, where it's like the two white crystals. If you get enough of the one, the salt, you won't crave as much of the other, which is the sugar. So getting enough salt, getting a lot of fats and proteins. And then over time, I think letting the carbohydrates reduce, not only in the amount that people consume, but also the frequency in which people consume them. So I don't think it's a great idea to have a low amount of carbohydrates that's spread out throughout the day where you're still consuming them, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. I think trying to get the frequency down to maybe like in one meal, you have a limited amount, whatever that is for you. I think focusing on getting, the carbohydrates as low as you can tolerate and as infrequent as you can tolerate can be some of the most beneficial things to start with.
Yeah, so sometimes on the ketogenic protocols, you'll hear people say, well, don't go more than 30 grams of carbohydrates a day because that's what it takes to get into ketosis, or maybe it's as high as 50. I've read also 100 grams. And so I think sometimes people get focused on those numbers, but I love what you're talking about, that start with adding. It's all about getting more protein, getting more fat, then add some salt to what you're getting. And then little by little, you can start to pull those carbohydrates back to see how you feel best. Listen to your body. Don't just go off of some arbitrary number. Everybody's body is different. How your body processes food is different. Your muscle mass is different. Your activity level is different. It's about getting in tune with your body and listening to your body. I want to go back to salt for just a second, though. We're not talking about this Morton iodized salt, right? There's a difference between that and other salt. The quality of salt really matters, not only to the taste, but also to how it functions in your body. So what type of salt do you use?
Yeah, that's a great question. And such a good point. There's two main ones that I use, and it depends on what I'm using them for that I'll use them. So the first one that is my primary salt that I use for most things is Redmond's Real Salt. Got to rep them. They're a Utah brand, not too far away from here. It's a salt that comes from an ancient sea bed. And so it's technically a sea salt, but it hasn't been an ocean for millions of years. And so it hasn't been polluted. There's no plastics. They don't do anything to it. So it's a really natural form of salt. We've had the pleasure of interviewing Daryl Bouchard, who is a representative of Redmond's Real Salt, on our show a few times. Actually, we talked to him about salt. We've also talked to him about dental products, which was really fun. And he recommends, like, you don't have to choose our brand, but choose a natural brand of salt. There's a lot of great salts around the world that you can use. The gray salts in France, different salts from Hawaii. There's a lot of different kinds you can use. I really prefer Redmond Real Salt. I think it tastes great. I think it goes great with a lot of different foods. The other one is a salt that you introduced me to, which is Malden salt, which I really love. It's a bigger salt.
My favorite.
So good. It's big and flaky and crispy. This sounds weird, but it's almost like a great snacking salt. Like, that's the one that I'll take if I'm doing my backpacking trip every single year. I'll fill up a little vial with a few grams of this, like, kind of thick, flaky salt, and I'll just snack on it as I'm in a totally fasted state and, walking 10 miles with a backpack. And I don't crave any food at all. Like, my energy stays really good. It's a really easy one to kind of snack on. And it's a really great one to finish with. So those are the two that I prefer, but don't feel like you're limited to those two. It could be whatever kind that you like and you really enjoy the taste of it.
It's funny. I think you and I talk so much, and we tend to absorb what each other does. Those are the two primary that I keep in my cupboard. Now, I have a few others that I use, but Redmond is my go-to with just about everything. Malden is my finished salt. I will use the smoked Malden salt from time to time if I'm making a steak and putting that on top of it. But yeah, they're phenomenal salts. Well, Casey, I think we've got some great tips for our listeners that get them started in this low-carb ketogenic lifestyle. So on that note, folks, it's time to wrap up this episode of Evolve Your Body. Casey, I want to thank you for joining me today. How do people find you and find all the great stuff that you're doing?
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. They can always just go to our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. They can book a free 30-minute consultation with us. They can send us a message. We're happy to help people in any way possible. So yeah, that's usually the best place, is just the website, which is myboundlessbody.com.
Awesome. And you can also listen to to Boundless Body Radio. Casey has about 3 episodes or so a week that he drops. He's got a wide variety of guests about a wide variety of topics. If you're interested in the low carb ketogenic lifestyle, you can jump on. I think I've listened to a lot of podcasts. There's very few that I keep on my rotation. And in fact, I think I consistently only listen to about 2 or 3, and Boundless Body Radio is one of those 2. So it's a phenomenal podcast. So for our listeners, jump on over there and listen to the episodes that Casey drops. So thank you very much, Casey, for jumping on. And thank you, our listeners, for disrupting your day to spark the evolution of your body. You're fantastic. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve.
So that was the first episode called Simple Tips for Starting a Low Carbohydrate Lifestyle. The second one we're going to get into right now, which is called Shut Your Mouth When You're Talking to Me, which again is all about mouth taping and proper breathing.
Hold it now. This is getting better and better.
Get some recipes.
Look at that.
Yes, sir. You haven't peaked yet.
I just can't wait. That's a lesson that games are not played on paper.
No.
But they're played on the field. I told you guys,
I told you. Welcome to Evolve, a lifestyle brand that disrupts conventional thinking and challenges you to evolve your soul, evolve your body, evolve your mind, and evolve your tribe. And now, it's time to disrupt.
You have value and you are not alone.
When I close my eyes, I can see a whole different world. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do, man.
Welcome to Evolve Your Body, part of the Evolve Your series of shorts that gives you real-world stories and ideas that disrupt your current thinking and spark evolution. Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by my good friend, owner of Boundless Body and the host of Boundless Body Radio, Casey Ruff. Casey, welcome to Evolve Your Body.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. So we've had you on the podcast before, and I thought it would be great to have you back on because I think one of my favorite things that we tell each other is you shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Exactly right.
But you did an episode. I can't remember. Who was the name of the author of Breathe?
James Nestor.
Okay. And I loved that episode. For our listeners here that have not listened to the episode, go to Boundless Body Radio. And wow, what a fascinating episode. One of the things that I learned from it is that you are literally trying to shut your mouth when you're talking to me, right?
That's right.
Or at least when you go to bed at night. So James talked about this idea of mouth taping, or that was part of the conversation that you guys had. And I remember when you and I connected afterwards, I was like, dude, tell me about this whole mouth taping thing. So tell our listeners a little bit about mouth taping.
Yeah, sure. So James Nestor is a journalist and became really interested in the concept of breathing, which is something I think most of us really kind of take for granted. It just kind of happens. We don't really pay much attention to it. And we
never think about it.
That's right. Yeah. And you said something really interesting yourself, like the mouth is for talking. That's true. It's not necessarily for breathing, where most people are breathing through their mouths. That's why we have our nasal cavity. And that's the reason that's where we should be properly breathing, essentially. And so mouth taping is really just a really interesting practice of just putting a small strip of tape just right over, part of your mouth to keep it closed at night. Most of us have a tendency to open our mouths when we breathe. So many people have sleep apnea, they're snoring, they wake up, they're drooling, or their mouth is dry. Mouth taping can help solve all of those things and help you kind of train yourself to breathe in and out through your nose the right way, the way that we're supposed to be breathing.
So let's talk about the benefits of breathing through the nose versus breathing through the mouth. Why were we evolutionarily designed to breathe through the nose?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The nasal cavity is so much better at kind of filtering different particles out of the air. So you talk about like wearing a mask out in public, we've been told to do for the last year and a half. That's your own natural masked. Basically, you've got nasal hairs. There's so much more like turbulence in the nasal cavity that can help stop different bacteria and viruses from entering the body. It's how we add basically like almost like a humidity. We get more moisture and warmth through the nasal cavity than we do from breathing from the mouth. It's the way that we're supposed to be breathing. There's all kinds of different reactions with carbon dioxide and nitric oxide that we get from nose breathing versus mouth breathing. It's also a really ancient practice. Like a lot of people practice it. People in Greece and Rome would put water in their mouth when they would run great distances to help train themselves to breathe in and out through the mouth. It's been shown to help with allergies and ADHD and all kinds of really interesting associations.
Yeah, it's amazing that the mucosal layer on the mucus that is captures some of these particles in the nose actually help to prevent some of these viruses and bacteria from getting into the system.
Yeah, that's right. It's
pretty fascinating.
It is. It's our own innate like protective system for some of those things.
Yeah. So talk about mouth taping a little bit more. When I heard this, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. People are actually taping their mouths shut when they go to bed. Now, we've seen people wear the Darth Vader mask because they've got sleep apnea. And so they've got to put this on and look at their partner and say, Luke, I am your father, and then go to sleep. This is a much different thing than that. But talk about like, what is it? How do people do this?
Yeah, it is a little bit weird when you first get started, and it might be uncomfortable for sure. The best tape that I've used is a 3M micropore tape. I mean, you can get 12 rolls of this on Amazon for like $8. It's very inexpensive. Mm-hmm. It's a paper tape. It doesn't it leaves a little bit of residue on the mouth in the morning, which is pretty easy to wash off. But basically what you do is like take off a strip, maybe about an inch long. I'll always stick it on the back of my hand about an hour before I go to bed, just to kind of get some of the real stickiness off of it. And then you just put the
adhesive down, right?
Yeah, that's right. And then you just put it right across your mouth, and it just trains your mouth to be closed during the night. And again, it might be a little bit uncomfortable when you're first getting started, but over time you will learn how to breathe properly through your mouth. You'll take in the proper amount of air. You'll breathe at the proper cadence, which according to James Nestor is about 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out for an in-breath and an out-breath, which means that you're taking in about 5.5 liters every single minute, and you're breathing about 5.5 times every single minute, which is kind of funny.
Wow.
But that's about the right cadence that we want. And basically, it can help you with your sleep. It can help you with your dentition. Your teeth should feel way better, way cleaner. You should wake up with a moist mouth rather than a dry mouth. I've heard really interesting anecdotes of people having like different dreams, like being able to dream more peacefully, having, better dreams versus like nightmares, all kinds of crazy benefits. Yeah. And I've noticed with performance as well, as I've been trying to, do my mouth taping, I've been trying to breathe consciously through my nose while I'm doing things like walking or even like intervals. Like Patrick McEwen talks about this in the Oxygen Advantage. If you're holding your breath while doing, maybe you're walking, maybe you're running, maybe you're doing cycling, you're just trying to hold your breath a little bit more. I've noticed that I can nose breathe at a much higher heart rate than I ever expected. I don't normally use a heart rate monitor anymore. And a few weeks ago, I just wanted to try to see like where my heart rate was while I was like writing. And I noticed that I was able to nose breathe pretty comfortably with my heart rate very high, like 170, 175, which is not something that I was expecting, but it's kind of an interesting benefit. I'm able to take in a much more quality breath in through my nose than I would be through my mouth. And especially in a sport like I participated in cycling, you can really, really crush somebody else's soul by pretending like you're not suffering at the same heart rate as somebody else when you're suffering exactly the same amount that they are. You just have to
That's a great point.
Yeah, nose breathing is a great way to do that.
That is a great point, because as you get closer to your anaerobic threshold when you're out, whether it's cycling, running, or whatever, your jaw tends to drop open and you be breathing a lot more from the mouth. You see a lot more of those physical signs. That's a great intimidation tool. So talk about some of the benefits that you've seen, aside from intimidating other cyclists. What are some of the benefits that you've seen from mouth taping as you've done it? How long have you been doing it? I guess a month, 2 months?
It's something that's been in my field of consciousness for the last, I don't know, a few years. I heard about it a few years ago. I tried it a few years ago. It was never something that was really consistent in my practice. I know for sure that I was snoring a lot more than I wanted to admit, according to Bethany. And so it's really been the last like 3 or 4 months that we had that interview with James Nestor, that I've been a little bit more diligent with my practice. And I just noticed, some of the things we've already talked about, I feel like the quality of the breath that comes in is much better. I feel like I don't need to breathe as frequently. My breath seems to be a little bit more shallow. I feel like I can take a deep breath, but I don't need to do my normal day-to-day activities. I just feel in general like more relaxed. It really seems to kind of activate the parasympathetic nervous system and put me in a greater state of just relaxation. I can handle stress much better. It's been a really great practice. I think a lot of people should really try it. I mean, it's very cheap, almost free. You can start today. You can start at whatever age you like. It is, again, it's very simple. And I think it can provide a lot of benefits.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we talk about one of the most important things, if you're training at all, is your recovery. And the cheapest and easiest thing to do is to get better sleep. That's probably one of the worst things that people do when it comes to their overall health, is get poor sleep. So I got to tell you, after you and I talked, I went online, I bought the stuff from Amazon, I started doing it. And the first couple of nights, it kind of, I woke up in the middle of the night and it just didn't feel normal, didn't feel natural. And so I tore the tape off. I had kind of a mini panic moment where I'm like, what in the world's going on? I've got something on my mouth. And I tore it off. Wow. By the third or fourth night, I slept all the way through the night. I woke up, and normally at 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm waking up and I'm reaching over for this glass of water. I keep one of these big Yeti cups by my table, or by my bed on my table at night, and I would drink at least half of that every night about 2 or 3 in the morning, which means that then I have to go pee at some point during the night, or I've got to wake up in the morning and go run to the bathroom. By the third or fourth night, I felt a million times different. Number one, my jaw was not tight because it allowed my mouth to stay shut, but yet my jaw and my tongue relaxed. Wow. And so I wasn't waking up with this tightness. I used to grip my teeth when I would sleep at night, and I don't have that anymore. But I also wake up and I'm not dehydrated. We lose, people don't realize how much fluid we lose through our mouth and through mouth breathing. We swallow air when when the mouth is open. And so then it causes gastric distress as well. I've had no gastric distress. I'm not dehydrated. My jaw has relaxed, and I feel like I'm getting the recovery that I haven't before. So it's the funniest thing. So then I got to tell you, about 5-6 days in, my wife looks at me and she just starts laughing, and she's like, "That's the dumbest looking thing. I can't believe this looks so stupid." And I said, "Yeah, you want to try it?" She's like, "Yeah, what the hell?" So she tries it, same thing. Now we're hooked. More often than not, we're putting the tape on at night and pretending like we're kissing each other with this goofy tape, and then we roll over and go to sleep, and we have a great night's sleep. It's unbelievable. It is the dumbest thing that I've done in the past 3 months that has been extremely effective.
That's great. Wow, that's so cool to hear about.
Yeah. So I appreciate you doing the episode and teaching me how to tape my mouth shut so that I can keep my mouth shut while I'm talking to you.
Honestly, I was hoping that you were going to take a big drink of that Yeti mug while your mouth was taped and spill like 30 ounces of cold water in your bed. I was really hoping the story was going to take that turn.
I think I'll do that and then take a picture. We'll put it up with this episode.
Great, please do.
This is a reenactment of what happened to Steve in the middle of the night with the Yeti.
That's great.
So it's a really simple process. People can go on Amazon. They can buy this. What is it? The 3M tape?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different brands and varieties, and really just choose whatever works for you. The 3M micro, let's see, let me just make sure I get this right. The 3M micropore tape is a paper tape. Yeah. It again, it comes in I don't know, 12 rolls. It's not very expensive. It's a paper tape. It doesn't leave a lot of residue. That's worked really well for me. I know there's other brands and other things you can try. So just whatever works for you. But yeah, just training the mouth to stay shut. And for some people, they can, do this for a few months, a few weeks and get off of it. And for other people, they may choose to do it for the rest of their life. But it certainly has proven to be very beneficial.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and teaching our listeners a little bit about how to shut their mouths while they're talking to us, get better sleep, and overall just improve their health. Well, Casey Ruff, how do people contact you if they want to learn more about all the great stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So they can just go to our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. We recently added a feature where you can book a free 30-minute consultation. You can send us a message, whatever you like. We're just happy to help. And that's the best place to contact us.
Awesome. And listen to the Boundless Body Radio podcast. Casey drops, 3 episodes every week at least? And
we do.
Amazing guests from all walks of life, some of the smartest people. I mean, there was one episode I listened to recently that I text you afterwards and I had no idea what they were talking about. I got to listen to it again. They were so smart, way above my head. But yet the majority of the guests that you have on are very, very smart people that are able to break down these concepts into very simple, understandable takeaways from it. So go listen to Boundless Body Radio podcast. It's a phenomenal podcast. And on that note, folks, it's time to wrap up another episode of Evolve Your Body. We want to thank Casey Ruff for joining us today. And thank you very much, our listeners, for disrupting your day to spark new evolution in your body. You're fantastic. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve.
So thanks again for listening to this bonus episode of Boundless Body Radio and my appearance on the Evolve podcast. Like I said in the beginning, please make sure you're going over to Apple Podcasts, go subscribe to his show, enjoy his content, and then make sure you leave him a rating and review to really support them and their work. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.